So I'm going to talk a little today about what's called the discriminant. So last class, we learned about the quadratic formula. And just a reminder, it is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So the discriminant is this thing that is inside of the root, the b squared minus 4ac. And the purpose of the discriminant of using it is to tell us how many solutions you have for your quadratic equation. So like, for example, if you look back at number 2 from the last class, we ended up getting a negative 16 inside our radical. That was our discriminant. That tells us that we have two imaginary solutions. If you have a negative number, you get two imaginary solutions. And sure enough, we had two imaginary solutions, 1 plus 2i and 1 minus 2i. Keep in mind, imaginary means that it has an I in it. For number 1 last class, our discriminant that we got was 60. That was the number in the radical. And that number was positive. And having a positive discriminant means that you're going to have two real solutions. So if you look back at the solution for that, we had negative 3/2 plus radical 15 over 4 and negative 3/2 minus radical 15 over 4. Even though it's kind of a complicated solution, it is a real solution because it doesn't have any i's in it. So the discriminant is a shorter way to tell you how many solutions you are, which will help you with graphing it without actually having to use the quadratic formula. So for these examples, the first thing we're going to do is find the discriminant. Then we are going to use the quadratic formula. And before we do anything else with these equations, you have to make sure that it is in standard form, meaning it's equal to 0. For 1, it is. Then we have to identify a, b, and c. So my a is the number in front of the x squared, which the coefficient of x squared is just 1. B is negative 8, and c is 20. So if I find my discriminant, once again, it is b squared minus 4ac. I'm going to end up getting negative 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times 20. Negative 8 squared is 64. 4 times 20 is 80. I end up getting negative 16 for my discriminant. So this tells me that I am going to have two imaginary solutions. So if you look at the third one, b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, meaning it is negative. I have two imaginary solutions. So the next thing we're going to do is use the quadratic formula. And I'd actually like you to pause and do the quadratic formula yourself, please. So when we do the quadratic formula, we do x equals, have it up here, x equals negative b, which is negative 8. So it's going to be negative 8. So that 8 will become positive. And then it's going to be plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. Actually, for this type of problem, I already found the b squared minus 4ac, and I found out that it was negative 16. So I'm not going to do extra work. I'm going to just leave it as negative 16 to save myself a little time. This is all over 2 times a, which is 1. So when I continue, make that square root a little bit less long, I do end up getting positive 8 minus minus becomes a plus or minus 4i all over 2. I do need to split this up so that I can simplify. So I get 8 over 2 plus or minus 4i over 2, which gives me 4 plus or minus 2i. And you are free to write your answer like that, or if it makes you feel more comfortable, you can write it as x equals 2 plus 4 plus 2i and 4 minus 2i. That's okay too. Okay, so for number 2, I do want to warn you that this one is not in standard form, so before you do anything else, you're going to want to move that 20 over. Otherwise, you're going to get something, you'll actually probably get the same thing that you got in the last one. So when I use the discriminant, I am going to get A equals 1, B equals -8, C equals -20. Go ahead, I'd like you to evaluate the discriminant on your own, and then do the quadratic formula. So my discriminant, once again, b squared minus 4ac. So I end up getting -8 squared minus 4 times 1 times -20. I do end up getting 64, and I have two minuses in there, so it's going to become a positive, and it will be 80. 64 plus 80 is 144. And for this one, I have a positive discriminant, which means that I should hopefully have two real solutions. So then I'm going to go ahead and use the quadratic formula. I end up getting x equals, so -8 just becomes 8, plus or minus the square root. And once again, I already know that the b squared minus 4ac is 144, so I'm going to put that into that square root, all over 2 times 1. So I end up getting 8 plus or minus 12, all over 2. I do need to split this up. There are several ways that you can split this. You can change it to two things, plus and minus, right now, or you can wait until the end. It's up to you how you want to do the next part. There are two different ways, and you should fix the answer. So I'm going to get 8 plus 12 over 2. And I'm actually going to write it as a different way. I'm going to do 8 plus or minus 8 over 2 plus or minus 12 over 2. That gives me 4 plus or minus 6. So then that's going to split up to 4 plus 6 and 4 minus 6. So I get x equals 10 and x equals -2. And as I predicted with my discriminant, because it was positive, I do have two real answers. I do want to mention on number 2, this problem is a lot faster. If you factor it, you will get the same answers. It will just go quite a bit faster. So keep in mind that the quadratic formula works every time, but it's not always the best or the fastest way to do it. Okay, we're going to do one more. I do want you to notice that I made a typo on this one, so please note that. Feel free to pause the video and try this one on your own. I recommend it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move over that 8x and write this in standard form. You will notice that I put the 8x in the middle. If you write it as like x squared plus 16 minus 8x equals 0, that is fine as long as you recognize that the 16 is the C and the -8 is the B. It's out of order. I usually prefer just to write it in standard form the first time, keep it in order so that I know what my A, B, and C are. So then when I find my discriminant, I get b squared minus 4ac is equal to -8 minus 4 times 1 times 16. And that gives me 64. 4 times 16, if you can't do that in your head, you can just work it out on the side. You will end up getting 64. So I get 64 minus 64, and I get 0. And you'll notice if you look up there, it says if b squared minus 4ac equals 0, the equation has one real solution. There's an extra s in there. So I'm going to get something that has one real solution in this. And I don't think we've ever had one of these quadratic formula ones before. So once again, if you have not already, I want you to pause the video and try the quadratic formula. We end up getting x equals -8 gives us plus 8, plus or minus the square root. I already found that the b squared minus 4ac was 0, so I'm just going to leave it in there as 0, all over 2 times 1. And So you might be wondering what's the square root of 0? Square root of 0 is just 0. So I get 8 plus or minus 0 over 2. And actually, you're welcome to split it up now as 8 plus 0 over 2, 8 minus 0 over 2, or you can split it up as 8 over 2 plus or minus 0. However, if you add or subtract 0 to anything, you will just get that number. So it's just 8 over 2. And 8 divided by 2 is 4. That is my only answer there. Just a note, you may recognize this from the completing the square stuff we did. If you factor this is x minus 4 times x minus 4 equals 0. If you solve by factoring, you'll notice that when you solve that, you just get x equals 4. You get it twice, but that is my only answer. So I do, as predicted by the discriminant, have only one real solution.